We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new podcast. This is an experiment. We'll see how it goes, but both of us are pretty excited. My name's Chris. I play Coriakin, and I'm really excited to talk to you about music today. And with me is...
Yeah, I'm Semi. I play as Bingro, and yeah, I'm just happy to get this thing going. I think we've been talking about this for months,
At least.
and now it's really happening.
Indeed, I'm excited. So, this is mainly going to be sort around Bard music and Clanlord. If you don't play this game, I have no idea how you found this podcast, but I'm very excited to have you with us. But in general, it's going to be talking about composing, writing music. We're assuming that you're coming into it with at least some background. This isn't really aimed at people who are just starting from absolute scratch. But for people who are amateurs, interested in getting better, we're hoping that we can cover some topics that might be really helpful and hopefully fun too. So, the first one is the question that every single musician gets asked all the time, which is, of course, where do your ideas come from? But that isn't really the important question after all. What it really is because when you're a musician, you're having ideas all the time. Maybe you're just humming stuff randomly, or you hear something in another piece you want. Maybe you just improvise, you're just playing something random on your instrument. The question is, when you have all these ideas, which ones are worth keeping and which aren't? I don't know. Have you ever been asked where you get your ideas from?
Actually, no, I don't. I think people just don't think I have any ideas at all, but somehow they end up being in my huge Google Docs, and and sometimes, yeah, they end up being in the game as well.
That's, I haven't had too many interviews with people who aren't actual already musicians. I've done a lot of tutoring during my time, but every time I see an interview with a professional music writer, someone always asks that question. But you said something that's really important I want to draw your attention to, which is write everything down. Whenever you have an idea, even if you think it's terrible, always write them down, because you never know which ones are good and which aren't. So that's actually what we're going to talk about today. Which ideas are worth keeping, which aren't, and once you've got an idea, how do you develop it? So I am going to talk about some of the generalities, and then we're going to talk about some of Bingro's music specifically later. So first off, let's talk about what makes a good idea. A good idea is like a seed that grows a piece from. When you have an idea, it feels like it tells you something important about what the piece could become. Maybe it's something like really exciting or inspiring to you that you really want to do. Maybe it's something you've got some sort of like emotional attachment to, but there's something about it that really grabs you. Another quality to good ideas that are pretty common is they've got lots of options for development. What I mean by that is they can go to a lot of different places. If you have an idea that only leads to one place, it might be really, really good if that's perfect, but often having a bunch of different possible places it can go to, or different ideas it gives you, can be really, really useful. Now, one more thing I wanted to say was, oh yes, sort of similar to the last one is it's got to have a sense of momentum, as it's pushing you towards something. If you have an idea that's sort of static, often that isn't as effective, although we'll talk about that in a second. But if it feels like it is pushing you towards something, that's something that I find really, really motivating, really effective. Ideas don't have to be perfect. Honestly, they don't even necessarily have to sound really good as they are, but they really want to have some sort of quality that's worth pursuing. I don't know, Bingro, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, actually, I do. I think what's also important is that ideas are highly, highly personal. Something that's a bad idea in your eyes or in your ears might be a perfect jam for someone else. So I personally I identify as a rhythm freak, more or less. I really love playing with rhythms, and that's a huge part of my music as well. If you have heard a few songs of mine, there are mainly rhythms layered on each other, and I really love that dimension thing that's being created by that.
Absolutely. I have noticed that in your music, and I think it's one of the things that makes what you write so engaging. On the other hand, the other side of the coin is ideas that aren't really as effective. There's a couple of things that can make an idea feel like it's not worth it in my eyes, and one of them is, or I guess my ears. One of them is just if it's unexciting or boring. Unexciting or boring. I'll say that again. A lot of ideas you just like noodling around, and sometimes they don't sound good, and that's okay because a lot of what we write isn't good. It's fine. That's the way it is. It's you sort of have to produce that 80% of it so that the 20% that is actually decent, or oftentimes less than 20%, is actually worth it. But what makes it unexciting or boring? One thing for me is if it's difficult to engage emotionally with it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what they call absolute music, music that's just written for the sake of it as music. But oftentimes, if you're writing something that has the audience can engage with emotionally, it's like an easy way to get the audience to buy in and want to listen to it. If it's more sort of academic or theoretical, often that can be hard for people to engage with. Two other things I wanted to mention, sort of the counterpoint to the earlier. If you have an idea that doesn't feel like it's leading anywhere, that even if it sounds good, that may not necessarily be a good idea for a piece because it's not flowing into anything. It can be really hard to find the next section, so to speak. Yeah, I struggle with that a lot. The last thing
Yeah,
oh, go
I
ahead.
think everyone does because I do too. I think that's something you'll hear later when I show my discarded music that hasn't led anywhere for me. What I think is the best thing that can happen to you if you have the feeling that the idea you just created is something new for yourself. When I look back at my first days as a art quest, or even before that, and I go through the songs I've written over the time, so often there are things that are new in my music that I haven't been doing before, like odd time signatures, like playing around with new instruments, the first trio, and so on. So uh, you just it doesn't have to be perfect because there is no perfect music. Um, at least I feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you evolve, if you have something new for yourself, if you learn something maybe by just like sus chords or anything like that, um, that that helps you grow. And I think that's really something that is makes an idea good, at least for yourself.
I agree. That can having something new can always be exciting and really inspiring to try and play with. Speaking as someone who sort of, I guess, got more experience than you. I mean, I've been composing for, oh geez, now, almost 30 years. Wow. Okay, but what happens over time
Yeah, I
is
am 31, so
okay.
you've been composing all my life.
Yeah, not quite, but pretty close, unfortunately. What I was going to say is, as you get some more experience, the novelty never goes away, although it's harder to find really new stuff. Over time, you sort of
Yeah.
you trade novelty for subtlety. You actually find new ways of doing something that's similar, but there's these little tiny things that allow it, or not necessarily little, but no, actually, they're little tiny things that when you explore them, end up being big changes, or at least they feel that way. Really good point. Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to expand on that.
Go for it.
Actually, that's something I feel like what a good idea also can be is something that's, as you said, subtle. A lot of my music has an idea in itself that you can't hear necessarily, but you can read it if you look into the code, more or less. For us, it's code. Just like for those who have partied forever, I think some might know that song. There's a lot going on with. I'm playing with the names of the note, so they're forming real words in the code.
I know what you're talking about. Yes. Carry on.
Um, and I don't know. I think nobody really heard that because I showed it to you earlier, a few months ago. But the song I wrote for the April Fools, what is it called?
Oh, the
Um,
book fort. Yes.
Bookfort. Bookfort. It's all about time. There are so many different ways I could think of time being cast into music. There's the bell that's going all the time. It's written in the 120 speed, which translates pretty nicely into seconds. There's my own song always somewhere hidden in there. So there's a lot of stuff going on under the surface, being pretty subtle, and I really love doing that. And that is, if I have this kind of idea, I really, really love it, and that's something that keeps me going all the time.
That's awesome. Having having music that's like very accessible to the public, but also has these little things just for you or just for people looking at the notes can also be fun. Speaking of pieces
Yeah.
that use letters to make words, you should ask Rakshasa to play the Ballad of Your
Hmm.
Face sometime. It's
Okay.
exactly what you think. All right, so I have a couple of examples I'd like to play, just of some ideas that either I've developed or I haven't developed, and just show you, sort of point out things that really appeal to me, and then we'll get on to your music. So
Hmm.
let's see.
While you're setting up, I really feel like this is a great opportunity to show music that probably would never have seen or heard would have been heard by anyone besides ourselves.
Absolutely.
So I think that's cool.
Yep. All right. So here's an idea I came up with that never. Well, no, actually, it was written April 30th, 2024. So just recently, it may still go. Okay.
Oh,
Here it is. So that was actually the idea I had first. So it's just this arpeggiated harp pattern. But the thing that I really like about it is that it's kind of exciting. The fact that the pattern keeps changing throughout the like every single top note almost adds to a melody. So just before I'll say one more thing, which is I actually decided to add a melody to it in another instrument. It makes it easier in the program I write. So let me play it one more time with the melody. And once the pattern's established, here we go. So that's what an idea looks like for me. It's just establishing a sort of texture, an idea of how the piece might flow, and then just a little segment of melody that could explain sort of how the melody is supposed to sound. I don't know. What did you think about that one?
yeah, I. I don't want to be any kind of disrespectful, but I
Please do.
do see. Oh, I can understand why you abandoned it. I think there's. Um, um, I think you can define a bad idea as the absence of anything that's interesting, and I haven't had the feeling that it draws me into listening much further, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Um,
I was going to say in response to that, yeah, this piece is definitely very. Well, what's there is minimal. It's currently it sounds almost like a lullaby or maybe like waves rolling in or out. I can see where it could go somewhere interesting, but right now, it's I don't know. I'm on the fence. You're not a huge fan of it. I think it could go someplace, but let's find out. Here's another
yeah.
one. Why don't you let me know what you think
Hmm.
about this one? So this one is I don't remember. Oh, I see. This is like almost a pre-chorus or a transition in another piece. Well, let me play it for you first.
Hmm.
So you can tell it's all about the chords, these interesting chords I like. One thing that I did with this is I actually tried to figure out where it would go next. So I decided to repeat it and each time vary it a little bit. Let me play it for you one more time, and this time I'll keep going the whole way through. It's hard to tell, but it's a little bit different there. This time's.
Hmm.
So that last one sort of implies what the end of that section might be with this long sustained chord. I don't know. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
but I don't think it's finished there, is it?
Oh no,
So
these are
I
all
feel like
just.
it should go on. I think it's way better than well, I liked it way better than the one before. Maybe it's like it has a much more, yeah, it has a full sound, which I missed in the one before. Minimalistic music can be great, but it has to compensate for some stuff, at least for my feeling.
Cool.
And that one is much richer than the one before, and it gets a bit repetitive though, which could be dealt with by adding a more interesting melody, maybe, or mixing up the rhythms.
But this is
Maybe
actually
that's what
okay.
that's maybe what I would try next.
So for me, I actually really don't mind if my ideas are a little bit repetitive when I'm starting them out, because I know that as I work with them, they'll change. For me, a lot of it when I'm just starting out is trying to get something down and really try and focus on like the tiniest seed that I can grow something from. All right, let's. I'll just show you one example of of an idea that I thought was really leading somewhere useful and then ended up not. So this was my Coriakin's pet in the game is her name is Shakan, and a Shakan is a kind of dance form from hundreds of years ago. I don't remember the exact period that has a repeated chord progression. So I decided that I'd try and write a Shakan for Shakan, and we'll take a listen to it.
Like the waltz for bear.
Exactly, exactly. That was what inspired it. You're right. All right. So I'll play what I've got, and you might understand why I sort of decided not to keep going with it. So it's nice. It sounds good, but the more I played with it, the more I realized it was sort of lacking that feeling of forward momentum. It wasn't pushing me towards something. It was just sort of staying in a space and staying there forever. And that works really well for some kinds of music, like funk especially. You just play the same thing for 12 minutes in a row. But for what I'm looking for, I don't know. It didn't really grab me. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I thought it is very Corey-esque, and that's pretty much what I see or what I hear when I think of Coriacan music. I liked it pretty much. It had some kind of repetition, but as I said earlier, it had a melody as well that stood out. It had some elements that kept it interesting, even though it was repetitive um, in the accompaniment. Um, and I think if you would give it some more care, some more time, you really could make something out of it. Especially what I liked was the idea of transporting the melody from the flute to the harp. I think, or was it the lyra?
The harp, I believe. Yeah.
I think it was harp. Um, and I think you could play with that. Or you could have played with that even more. So maybe even combine two melodies for a next part, for a next section.
Yeah, I'll look into it. I think the main issue is just like the actual structure of the piece, the chakan, the repeated chord progression, was making me feel trapped. I think that's what it was, a lot of it.
Hmm.
And I mean, there's got
Yeah.
to be a way around that. I just ended up not putting time into it.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing to consider. If you have things about your music that can not be changed because it's the music, it's the rules more or less. You have to find ways to around it, to find other things that keep the audience interested, that keep yourself interested in working with the song. And I think that sometimes can be pretty hard.
Absolutely. Well, maybe I'll keep poking around with it. Anyway, you
Yeah,
sent us
I,
some
I,
music.
I would
Oh,
love
sorry.
to hear it.
I'd
I
love to
would
hear
love
it
to
too
hear
when it's
that.
finished. We'll see. All right, so let's look at some of the ideas you've sent because you've got things that are quite a bit more further on than the ideas that I was poking out. Once you've got an idea, you fleshed it out a bit, then oftentimes you reach a point where you sort of get stuck or not sure what to do. I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
have?
I think the thing is mainly missing experience on my side, missing knowledge regarding certain genres or specific styles. Kani said something during the last concert that stuck with me. He said, "I don't think I've heard that style in Puddleby," and that's it, pretty much what I felt, because I don't feel like I have a certain style. I have some techniques, more or less, like the layered rhythms I talked about earlier and arpeggios, which I clearly like to use in my songs. But that's the Bingro style. That's nothing like the songs you write. For example, the Boat to Peaston, where you showed me your inspiration and you got pretty close to that while creating new music. But you could clearly hear where your idea was coming from,
Oh, actually, that's a good.
and
Sorry.
that's something I could never do,
Well, let me jump in
or
just for
at
a
least I
second.
couldn't do today.
Speaking about ideas, hearing another piece of music and deciding, oh, I want to do something similar is absolutely fine and very common. Just make sure it's not a direct copy. I
Okay.
think the idea of writing in a genre is a whole other topic that we should discuss another time. But a lot of it comes down to conventions. The idea is that there's certain things that get used frequently, and if you know those, you can use them because it's sort of like the language of the art form. And if you don't know those, then obviously it's going to be hard to do because you're recreating it. That said, I don't think you or any newer composer should worry too much about not having their own style because that's something that happens over a long period of time. I mean, I don't know about you. I only know of 12 notes. I haven't been able to invent a new one, and we're just sort of recombining things in new ways. But again, that whole idea of trading novelty for subtlety, when you start combining things in a specific way that you really, really like, that's how you develop your own style. It's something not that you do intentionally, it's something that you find out over a long period of time just by doing stuff.
Yeah, actually, I don't feel like I don't have a style. I can't recreate other styles. So if you'd asked me to write something in a Rakshasa way, I couldn't do that.
I mean,
If you'd asked me, I can show you later. I think we will play it later anyway. I did try to play something in a metal style, and it just doesn't work out for me as well as just writing whatever I feel to be my style, the Bingro style, if that makes sense.
it makes
Um,
perfect sense, actually.
it's just it's just the things I write don't have a specific style.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'd like to be able to write a cool metal song like Rux did with his Rockstar phase, or like you did with there's another Bookford song by you which is pretty crazy, the circus one.
Oh, right, that one, yes.
Uh, I would never be able to do that,
Well,
at least for the next 5 years.
yeah. Again, it's just a matter of expanding your vocabulary. The more you learn, it really
Yeah,
comes down to like I listen to music like a kleptomaniac. I can't stop stealing things. I just hear something and I'm
yeah,
like,
copycat.
"Ooh, that I want that to be my music too." And I mean, it might not be great, but it's really effective. And again, like you pull stuff in, and just if it sucks, we try again. All right. Well, speaking of things that don't suck, you want to actually let's listen to this first trio that you wrote over here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, actually, it's my very first attempt at a trio. Nothing that has been published really,
Cool.
but maybe some context for that. I still do like it. I think all the music you'll hear today from me is music I like, but has been discard it, not because I thought it's a bad idea, but I couldn't figure out how to go on with it. Maybe some words to before we play, just to give you an idea or of what you might be wanting to listen for. The song is pretty simple, I'd say. It has a flute melody which I really like, and I do really much love the two-born, which is entering as a bass line and creates some kind of a counter melody. So it's a bit working with and against the flute at the same time. I think you'll hear what I mean when we hear it, and that's all accompanied by the guitar, which plays more or less arpeggios, like they always do or often do when I write songs.
Cool.
Yeah, maybe we could
All right.
just listen to it, and then you tell me what you think of it.
Sure. All right. Here we go. Just so everyone knows, I'm playing on M-Tooth, an older program. It's a little bit quiet, but I'll do my best to turn it up in the recording. All right. Here we go. Oh, sorry. I added a little bit extra there. I give it
Yeah,
away my
I thought
secret.
I thought that the song ended earlier.
No, it
No,
did.
what you heard at the end was an idea I had, which ended up being the last of a few ideas that all were unsatisfactory
Okay. Well,
to me.
let, let me give you a couple of comments on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So
Always.
first off, I started talking about the idea of like a good idea versus a bad idea. I definitely think this is a good idea because it does establish something really cool and it's pushing you forward. Like it feels like it's building tension and then sort of moving away from it. There's this sense of momentum to it that I really, really like. I there's always kind of an issue whenever you're writing a piece that has a dramatic change in tempo or feel like you've got there, which is how do you make it feel like it's part of the same piece? In this case,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's.
yeah. Oh,
I
sorry,
struggle with that a lot.
well, in this case,
I struggle with that a lot.
you keep the key the same, and the chord progression's pretty similar, and the two-born part is unchanged, which do help. But of course, that always leads to the question of like, so you've got this change in feel, this change in not key, but change in atmosphere. Structurally, what's going to happen? Is the first part going to come back later? Is that melody from the first part going to come back at this new tempo? There's lots of things you can try, but it can be useful to have a sense in your mind of where it's going. Although often that, especially when you're starting out, you don't know. For a very first trio, this is actually really, really nice. This is really good. Lots of good stuff going on here.
Yeah, but it took a while. I really, that is the ultimate version of quite a few months of coming back at it, giving it another try, and until I finally gave up, more or less, because I started writing another trio. So I'm good with trios now, but that was actually the first attempt, and it took a while until it is in the state which it has now. But that was
All
a
right.
lot of work.
It I mean, it is. And whether you end up with something that you're happy with or not something you're not happy with, it's still a lot of work. And this, unfortunately, is, the thing that people don't see when you're a bard. They only see you get up on stage or just playing music. They don't see all the hours spent bashing your head against a wall, being like, "What comes next? Why doesn't this work?"
Yeah, but I really feel like people do appreciate what we're doing. That's something that I've never missed when during concerts. People really appreciate any music that you present.
I know, and that's one of the reasons why I still do it, because it's really nice to write something that you can share with people and feel like you've done something good. All right.
Yeah, and it's pretty rewarding when people just feel the music and say something nice about it.
All right, so I sort of gave it away earlier, but I had thought about how you could resolve some of these issues you're having, or a place it could go next. You want to hear?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's actually zoom in on just the part after the tempo change, because I like everything you have up to there. Even the transition into the new section with that little pause before it starts, I think works really well. So let's hear that one more time. This is just the part that's at 140 tempo. Here we go. So that's what you had.
Yeah.
That's all you had.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. You have this new rhythmic pattern, which is establishing your new time signature for anyone excited out there. Instead of, I think, like 6/4, it's now 12/8. Anyway, the new feel. But I think you need to commit to it more. I think if you're like, I've got this, I really want to go. And just thinking about your phrase length so far, it's only really half done. So the first thing that I would do is to get something that feels like it's the whole, like a complete rhythmic pattern. And then even if it's not perfect, just see how it feels. So I came up with this. So you start in C minor, and then you go to E flat.
Pretty much all of my music is starting in C minor.
And why not? It's a great key.
It is excellent. It just gives me the ability to use C as the lowest note we have, pretty much as a cool ending.
Yeah, you'll notice a lot of my pieces are either in C or F or G, especially I like, because then you get the low root note for the 4 chord, which can also be fun. Anyway, focusing on this one. So I went to F minor after that, which you also used earlier. It's minor 4. And then I liked what you did earlier, where you had this, like the top 2 notes the same and you changed the bottom note. So starting with F minor, C, F, A, I moved the C up to D to make it actually like a D diminished chord, which sort of leads back to G. So this is what it sounds like. And it's fine. It's not. I mean, there's definitely things I'd want to change, but when I do this, I notice that like I really, really like your rhythms. You were talking earlier about how you think rhythmically, and I definitely think what you've done here is really cool. Just that last one where you swap the 2 length one and the 1 length one. Anyway, so speaking more generally for a second, if you're feeling stuck, there's 2 pieces of advice that I usually go to. The first is to, if you're feeling stuck, go back a bit. So delete some of the end of what you've got and try and recompose it from an earlier point and take the piece in a different direction. That can work, but I don't actually recommend that for this one because you've just transitioned to a new section and I like it. So the other one that I'd suggest is take a look at what rules you're following or assumptions you've made and see if you can't change something about them to give you some new options. So on this new section, you've got repeated chords establishing the rhythm. They need to repeat, and the rhythm has to be the same each time, at least at the beginning, to establish this new tempo. But do those really have to happen? So let's not mess with the rhythm yet, but what happens if you change the chords? Like, not enough to make a new chord, but just enough to add a little bit of melodic interest in an unexpected place.
Yeah, what I do not often, but sometimes, is that I go to the dominant key when I change a section, when I transition to the chorus or whatever. So I didn't feel like I could do that there already. Maybe for a bridge or something like that later on, but not yet.
Well, in that case, can I suggest something else to you?
Yeah, sure.
That's what I forgot to do. I was going to plug in my keyboard so I could play something at you, but it's not here. So basically, what I thought to do is, what if you change just a few notes from it? So I thought about still going to those same chords as before, but take a listen to this. See what you think.
Oh
So
yeah, I like that ending.
So basically, what I did is change the last chord so it's inverted. So the F is at the top, and then I just added that G in, which isn't really part of the chord, but it adds like a little melody to get up to the A flat, and then at the end it starts suspended and then resolves down to the G. So one more time. Anyway, so the other assumption you have here is that your flute is playing the melody, your chords are playing chords, your tuba is playing the bass, two horns playing the bass. And again, that's super fine because it works really, really well. But if you're feeling about it, if you want to change it up a bit, you could actually change the tuba horn as well. Now, I really like that you do basically the same thing at the start of this section, but if you're going to repeat this chord progression, you could take the tuba horn up to have it play a bit more of the melody. And it might seem a little bit more like this. Anyway, basically at the end I had this little flick going up to try and get the melody, the tuba to do a little bit more melodic. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, the whole idea for the two-bone was that D booming sound that it has at the beginning when it started coming into the arpeggio stuff. That was the initial idea that I had writing this first part. I really wanted to do something with the two-bone and the bass, and it's still something I would like to do, but I still haven't come back to it yet.
Fair enough.
So I think that wouldn't have been something I would have done back then, but still keeping in mind that was my first attempt at a trio. Maybe I would do more crazy stuff today. Probably I would. And I liked your idea. It's not like that. I think it's a bad idea, but it's something that I wouldn't have thought of back then because of my premise. I want to use the two-bone as a deep booming sound as a bass line.
And there's
Practically.
nothing wrong with that. And again, if you're going to give yourself a limitation like that, that can also be really, really effective in helping you be creative. Limitations breed creativity, and saying, you know what, no, this tuba horn is staying in the bass. There's nothing wrong with that. You absolutely should. Again, I think it's important to have a lot of sympathy for yourself. Again, as a first trio, this is really, really good. Lots of great stuff going on there. And again, with more experience, maybe someday you'll come back to it and decide you want to do something else.
Maybe, and maybe someone is hearing this podcast and will recognize it later on.
I certainly hope so. I have my own plan for some of my ideas. So, in terms of other things you like, the next thing you had was a Baroque guitar sort of idea, right? Or you're sort of inspired.
Yeah, that's at least that's the feeling I get. I really don't have any. I don't remember writing it actually, and I stumbled over it while looking through my older ideas, and I liked it, but I do see why I didn't go on with it because it leads into a space of nothingness for me where I don't know how to go on.
Cool. Well, let's listen to it then. So there's lots of cool stuff going on there. Can I ask you a question
Yeah,
as well?
sure.
Or what were you going to say?
I, it's just you at the end you can hear that I really wanted to go on with it. I played that to um, short notes to lead somewhere, but I didn't get anywhere.
So if you were to think about this, did you have any sort of structure in your head? Like, were you thinking that this first part was an intro, and then once the bass notes came in, that was sort of the main part, or was it two separate sections that are both equally important? Any idea?
No, the first part I think looking back at it, as I said, I don't remember writing it, but looking at it, I think the first part was meant to be some kind of an intro. I wouldn't connect both of those two parts today because of one is in A minor, the other one is as everything that I write in C minor. So the connection is not very strong looking backwards. So I wouldn't do that anymore, at least not without a step in between. But I really do like the second part, the dancey part.
So a lot of what you're saying is similar to what I was thinking. The change of key is weird, but sometimes weird is
Yeah,
can be really really good. So, like,
but not in Baroque music.
well, I mean, this is Baroque inspired. If you want to write an actual, I mean, Passacagli or whatever, then yeah, it wouldn't. That wouldn't
Yeah,
work. All right.
you're right.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm looking at my notes, but again, it's similar to exactly what you're saying. You set up a little bit of tension, but then it's resolved. What's it building towards? So, but here's the thing: like this dramatic change in key can be really, really effective. I think you just need to set it up more. So,
Hmm.
let me see if I had an idea. So I had an idea that I couldn't really make work super well, but my first was, what if the texture is the same? What if you have this sort of idea of like bass notes coming in the first section as well before you do your transition? So I came up with, oh yeah, here we go. So basically what I'm doing is I'm repeating the section, the intro section, to get a little bit more mileage out of it, to extend it, but also it sort of emphasizes the difference between those short notes from the beginning and the feeling of the more dancey, like the longer notes, extended notes, or sustained notes in the dance section.
Hmm.
Here it is. Let's see. So like I'm sure those bass notes are not the best choices, but the idea of sort of emphasizing these little short notes and then really when that longer note comes in later, I kind of liked. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's it's a thing you could try.
Yeah,
So let's see.
definitely send me whatever you wrote
Oh yeah.
with my music as the base, so I can have a look at it. Absolutely.
So just the other thing you mentioned was like, so the two things were feeling that the sections weren't connected, and man, I really like that the quote unquote odd the key signature change. It does work well because you lead into it with that CD, and then the first like there's a fast CD, and then the E is the first note of the melody there.
Yeah.
So it really really sort of excuses the weirdness of it. So the other thing was you could do another modulation at the end. Sorry, the other thing you're talking about was where to go next. You could do another modulation if you want to have it like constantly changing. Your first one, you went by three. You went from C minor to A minor. You could go down to, if you're keeping the pattern going, you could go down to F sharp minor or F minor. I don't know. But the
What sharp minor?
F sharp minor.
F
Hang on.
sharp. Okay.
Because a minor third down from C is A, a minor third down from A is F sharp. It sort of keeps the pattern
Yeah.
going. Although then you get this weird sort of like diminished outline that I don't know. It could work. Maybe probably doesn't, but you never know. Or you could go up to C major. I don't know. It's just the relative major that's boring.
Starting in C minor, ending up in C major
Yeah.
could be interesting.
Well, let's.
I think I did that once.
So anyway, if you remember, cast your mind back to way long ago when I mentioned that there were sort of two ideas for what to do when you're stuck. One is to look at your assumptions, sort of change something in with the rules of the piece, but the other is to just sort of like back up and rewrite what you've got. And I think that might actually work for the ending, because I think what's
Hmm.
actually giving you trouble is your melody sort of resolves downwards.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you want to push yourself into the next section, going upwards can be much more effective. So take a listen to this and see what you think. So that could work. The other thing is that made me think is like that chord is sort of pushing you go back to the A minor. If you went to the tonic, back to the A minor chord at the end, it might give you some more options for where you could go. Let's take a listen to it. So this is resolving to the A. So again, it's sort of like, it's rough, but you sort of get the general idea of going back to the A. I don't know. It could work.
Yeah, it might deserve some more fiddling around.
Maybe. Again, like, at the end of the day, the most valuable resource you have is time. So do you want to put more time to this? Or do you
Sure.
want to work on other things? Again, it's really up to you. All right, I'm just looking
Really,
at the time.
I still like it. I still like the basic idea, but maybe I'll give it a bit of a try and then see where it goes.
All right. Okay, then let's talk about one more tune of yours, which is this metal-inspired song. Now, you said that you really like this genre, right?
Yeah, it's besides classical music, it's my favorite music genre, and I always wanted to write something in the style, and I ended up with something which already consists of several parts, but I feel like they are not connected pretty well. So I like every single part of them, but they don't make a well-rounded song for me when stuck together. So I really would have to work on the transitions from one part to another, which I struggle with a lot. But maybe we can listen to it. Everybody can make up their own minds, and especially you can make up your own mind and give me your thoughts.
Oh, I have. All right, here we go.
Oh, you have.
Here we go.
There we go.
I actually really, really like what you've got here. As you say, there's some issues with like cohesiveness, but each individual part is really, really good. So can we talk about structure just for a second? This very first
Of course,
part.
anything you like.
Okay, this very first part. Are you considering that an intro, or are you considering it sort of like the first main
Yes.
theme? Okay.
No, it's an intro. That is actually inspired by several real songs.
Nice. Again, it works really, really well. I love the way that you layer instruments in there. The intro works really, really well. And then it flows quite well into the next section. Let me listen to it one more time. Yeah, I love the way the chords come in here. Is there a reason why you don't keep going with the guitar line there? Did it sound too busy?
No, I think it's just keeping everybody the idea of keeping everybody interested and changing things up, and maybe that was the reason why I changed that as well.
So
Yeah. Hard to say.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So basically, my feelings on this are you've got a lot of really cool stuff going on here. In fact, you have too much. Well, too fast at least.
Yeah.
You have all these really exciting sections, but you never give them time to just sit there. I don't. Have you ever seen the Michael Jackson documentary "This Is It" about his last concert series?
No. No.
There's this one section that really stuck with me where he is going through "The Way You Make Me Feel," and he like reaches this stopping point, and then the band goes right back into it, and he's like, no, 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 you got to let it simmer. So then you see it again where the band stops there and has 2 bars of just sort of like just keeping the beat going, and then they go back to it, and it works so much better. I think a lot of these sections need to be twice as long. Like when you get past the intro, that part with where the fast guitar stopped, I think that needs to be twice as long. And then again, your like the next part where you got those like fast chords coming back in, again also twice as long. I'm sorry, I didn't actually do this. Can we listen to it one more time? Here we go.
Of course.
I mean, I'd love to hear this intro line coming back under other sections later, but
We can arrange that.
yeah, right there. I think that section needs to happen again. Will you understand what I say if I mean that feels like it's 2 phrases? Like the
Yeah.
melody has 2 halves.
I think I would. Yep. Go on.
So in this section, I think what I would do, and again, it's not a Coriakin song, but what I would do is I'd repeat that section, so that the first half and the second half of the melody of that little bit. The second time through, I'd change the first half entirely, and I'd have the second half sort of similar to what happened before. The fancy music term for that is a parallel period, as opposed to a contrasting period. But the idea is that it's almost the same, but it's when it comes back, it's a little bit changed. Yeah, I think that'll give it.
Yeah, the difficulty with that is usually when I write music, it tends to get pretty long very quickly. So in case somebody doesn't know, we're limited to a specific number of characters we can use in a song. And I feel like I reached that limit pretty fast, especially with those chord-heavy songs I often write.
Yeah, and again, that is a valid concern, and it definitely is here. There are ways to get around that. There's ways you can compress things, but often the way that I deal with that is when I have sections come back later, they're almost identical, and the only parts that are different are either the very beginning or the very end, where you can sort of cheat with the the multiple ending loops. The other thing you could do there is if you are worried about that, you could switch the melody to being in the guitar. No, the melody works best in Torjo there. I think again.
Yeah, I wanted to have it distinguished from the intro guitar stuff, which is clearly instrumental or meant to be instrumental.
Yeah. Again, if it was me, what I would probably do is, again, if I was worried about the character limit, I would probably change the at least first few notes of that second half of the melody to go high. Sort of because your melody sort of swoops up and then goes down, swoops up and goes down. I want to go like really, really high before it goes down again, just to provide a little bit of contrast. The other part is where the fast chords come back in. Let's listen to that one more time. In my head, I'm feeling like this is sort of like verse-chorus structure, but maybe that's not what you were thinking of. Anyway.
It is. And a bridge.
Okay.
Yes.
So in my head, this is the intro. This is the verse part in my head. And this could be the chorus if you added a melody on top of it.
Yes,
And then
and
this would
that
be
is
like
my
verse
bridge.
Oh, nice. Okay. Again, like that bridge thing needs to be
And
twice as
we're
long.
together first.
It has to be twice as
Yeah.
long because it's so cool. What happens is like my problem, if you want to call it that, with this piece is you have these ideas, but you say them and you throw them away. Like I want them to come back. A lot of times, especially when you're writing music, once you've been at it for a while, is you don't run out of ideas, but like you feel like a lot of what you're doing is similar to what you've done before. So when you have an idea, you really want to try and get everything you can out of it. In this case, like I really like each of these individual ideas. I just want to spend more time with them.
I think that's a good sign in the end.
Oh no, it is. I can't wait to hear this piece when it's done, and I certainly hope that's when and not if.
Yeah, that one is one that haunts me a bit, and I really want to finish that one. Um, the ones we heard before, they're good ideas and they sound nice, but that one really catches me every time I come back at it and listen to it.
All right. I think that's about all the time we have because we are already overtime for our first one.
I didn't expect that actually. I thought, yeah, it's 45 minutes and I think we're done, but we've been talking so much, and we could go on. So it's not like we're really finished. It's just like we're doing a break for some time,
Perhaps.
probably. If people like it.
I actually really enjoy talking about music. It's difficult to get me to shut up sometimes. um,
That's
but
totally fine.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk about your music. Thanks for sharing your music, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next
Yeah,
one.
thank you as well. It was great fun talking, and I hope it's all right because that I struggle with some of my English phrases and I get stuck a bit, but
I can.
English is not my native language, but I try to get better and better, and I think that is the best way to do it, just by speaking it and talking about stuff you feel
Oh,
comfortable about talking about.
if you had not brought it up, I wouldn't have noticed. I thought you did just fine, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, this is Chris or Coriakin signing off. Thank you very much. Bigger, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I'll try. Thanks a lot from my side as well. It was a great first try at having a podcast. Let us know what you think. I think that is really what may keep us going. If you like it and tell us, then we might end up doing this a regular thing. Maybe.
Sounds
What do you
good.
think?
I mean, even if no one listens, I'm having fun talking with you.
Excellent.
All right, everyone.
Then we'll do it anyway. We just might kick the recording session out of that.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. Have a good day. Bye for now.
Bye.